All right, back on the Young Turks. Now, last night, President Obama gave a speech on jobs, very important speech. In my analysis of it, I tried desperately to remove my bias, and I'm not sure I succeeded. So what's my bias? Part of it is wrong, and part of it is right. The part that's wrong is I now look at President Obama's actions with great skepticism. And I'm just being honest with you on that. I'm trying to be honest with myself on it, so that when I come into that speech, I think, here we go again, okay? And so I'm trying to get beyond that. I don't think that's the right way to approach it. The part of my bias that's correct is that experience has led me to that skepticism. So when he promises something, I don't necessarily believe that it's going to happen. When he says that he's in favor of something, I don't necessarily believe he's in favor of it. That part has been earned, right? And when he says, hey, this is the whole package, I've learned through experience that that's not going to be the whole package. The Republicans are going to chip away at the parts that they don't like, and the final package will be 80%. If you're incredibly lucky Republican, okay? So those are my biases going in. I just want you guys I want to be honest about that going in. So now, having said that, most analysts looked at President Obama's speech last night and thought that he was feisty and that he was much more combative and forceful. I did not see that. Not that I missed it. I know he spoke louder. He seemed more forceful, but I thought that it was an obvious response to a lot of people in the media finally getting through to him and saying, hey, you look weak and you don't look like you're being forceful enough. So as we've seen 1.5 million times with Obama, him going, oh yeah, I will respond to the criticism by speaking a little louder and pointing a little bit more. Okay, because to me, being tough or forceful isn't about your speeches. We've already seen that the speeches sometimes are not what results in your actions. But of course, whether you're going to do that or not depends on what you actually do. And that follow through, I'll believe when I see. But one thing was clear. He apparently wanted Congress to pass this bill and to pass it right away.
You should pass this jobs plan right away. You should pass right away. Pass this jobs bill. Pass this jobs bill. You should pass it right away. Pass this jobs bill. You should pass it right away. Pass this jobs bill. Pass this bill. Pass this jobs bill. Pass this jobs bill. You should pass it. You should pass it again right away.
I enjoyed that. Look, I'm not against that. Rhetorically, he's repeating the same thing over and over, and that's something that works often. And so I don't have a problem with that. And he's trying to be, tough in at least his rhetoric. Okay, that's fine. I think I see beyond it, but nonetheless, there's no harm in doing it, if you ask me. It was a little comical, but that's okay. Hey, at least he's trying. And I also enjoyed McConnell's mopey face there. Like, what, you want me to pass it right away? Swang, wang, wang. And of course, right after the speech, McConnell came out and said, we're not going to do that. Now, McConnell's the guy who said that he wants to defeat Obama, and that's his #1 objective. If you pass this bill right away, there's some chance that it might actually help and it might create some jobs, which McConnell has no interest in. So he said, oh, it's like a tired old stimulus plan. No, of course we're not going to work with the president on that. Unsurprising. But given McConnell's stance, apparently President Obama still doesn't get it. He still thinks, if I could just be bipartisan enough. So this is the part of the speech I did not enjoy, and there's a lot of this. Let's start with clip 1.
I am sending this Congress a plan that you should pass right away.
Okay, I got it.
It's called the American Jobs Act. There should be nothing controversial about this piece of legislation. Everything in here is the kind of proposal that's been supported by both Democrats and Republicans, including many who sit here tonight. And everything in this bill will be paid for. Everything.
All right, so usual Obama stuff. Oh, it's Democrats and Republicans. We can work together. You've liked this before. Let's do it again. Come on. And of course, oh my God, I would never actually do stimulus. No, everything's paid for. Later, we will cut spending to the bone to pay for this stuff. I also want you to notice Joe Biden throughout, who looks like either he is on the verge of tears or just ate a huge chunk of lemon. And it's like throughout the speech. So let's continue.
So for everyone who speaks so passionately about making life easier for job creators, this plan's for you. Pass this jobs bill. Pass this jobs bill, and starting tomorrow, small businesses will get a tax cut if they hire new workers or if they raise workers' wages. Pass this jobs bill, and all small business owners will also see their payroll taxes cut in half next year. If you have 50 employees, making an average salary, that's an $80,000 tax cut. And all businesses will be able to continue writing off the investments they make in 2012. It's not just Democrats who have supported this kind of proposal. 50 House Republicans have proposed the same payroll tax cut that's in this plan. You should pass it right away.
I'm telling you, I'm beginning to enjoy it more and more every time. You should pass it right away. In fact,
ASAP. Fucking sack.
That's how you should pass it. Okay, I also enjoyed the number of people that are depressed at that speech, including McConnell and Biden, every time they show them. All right, look, I get the rhetoric. I get he wants to say, hey, listen, you guys are in favor of this. You would be totally unreasonable to not be in favor of it. At the same time, I'm so tired of but this was a Republican idea. It was a Republican idea. Did it work? As I just told you, every Republican came out and said, to be fair, Boehner was like, oh, it's interesting proposals. And that's because his popularity has taken a nosedive because he seems like such an asshole, okay? So that he finally said, okay, out of the goodness of my heart, I will say that I will look at it. Well, you're very merciful. But every other Republican came out and said, oh, yeah, this is absolutely unacceptable. You think constantly saying, hey, but it was your guy's idea in the first place helps? It doesn't help. Stop doing their ideas. All right, clip 3.
This idea came from a bill written by a Texas Republican and a Massachusetts Democrat.
Here we go again.
The idea for a big boost in construction is supported by America's largest business organization and America's largest labor organization. It's the kind of proposal that's been supported in the past by Democrats and Republicans alike. You should pass it right away.
The right-of-way stuff, I actually, now I'm totally in love with. I think it's hilarious. But the Democrat and Republican thing, I have the exact opposite feeling about. Oh, I know, you're so goddamn bipartisan, it's driving me crazy. Yes.
But maybe it shows as every other day, it seems like we're trying to figure out how much he really believes what he says and what he does and the rhetoric versus the action, all that stuff. If he keeps going at how much he wants this to be done and both sides agreed on it, which, I mean, of course, investigation would have to go to how much truth it is and who proposed it when and originally. But he really believes that both sides have all these points. It sounds like that's the last thing he's holding on to. He really believes in that. Well, both sides can have something, and they both have something to contribute to it, even though if you just look at the polls and be a politician, just do your side, that's going to work.
Yeah, I hear you. There's another good question by JR, as always. Two elements of that. Number one, I think you're right. Michael Tomasky recently wrote about this in Newsweek. It was a really good point. He said, it seems that the core ideology of Barack Obama is civic republicanism, which means that kumbaya, that we can all get together and for the good of the nation. And he just wrote a thing about 9/11. President Obama did an op-ed. Same thing. Now, on the 10th anniversary of 9/11, that's totally fine. That's the op-ed you're supposed to write. I don't have a problem with it. But it goes to the same idea. If we could just all work together, I know it'll work out. I know it. But it has a fundamental error that I just, for the life of me, cannot see how he doesn't see it, which is that it requires two honest actors. So if Jesus and I go to negotiate over my car and he's going to buy it for like $5 and I say $6, we're going to have an honest negotiation because we like each other, we trust each other, et cetera, and we're going to get to a fair price, right? But when one side is not an honest actor, there is no honest conversation. There is no civic republicanism. Those other guys are they don't. Look, you're misunderstanding. They don't work for the people that elected them. They vote, that voted for them. They work for the people who pay them. And those people make a profit by making sure there is no regulation, by making sure there are lower taxes for the rich, et cetera. So they're never going to have an honest dialogue with you. I mean, if you still think at this late juncture that that's your main core idea, I'm being incredibly generous by saying you're misguided. I'd like to use much stronger language, okay? But there's a second part of it, JR. So let me skip to clip number 10 here, because this is going to begin to show you two of the things that are at play in the speech. One is the right-of-way stuff, and the other is why does he want to work with the Republicans so much at this juncture still? So let's watch.
Already we're seeing the same old press releases and tweets flying back and forth. Already the media's proclaimed that it's impossible to bridge our differences. And maybe some of you have decided that those differences are so great that we can only resolve them at the ballot box. But know this, the next election is 14 months away. And the people who sent us here, the people who hired us to work for them, they don't have the luxury of waiting 14 months.
Yeah, look, he gets the big applause line there because he's saying, oh, the people are in trouble, and everybody's like, oh, yeah, I'm in favor of the people. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. No, but so why was that, I thought, the most pivotal clip that we're showing you in terms of what President Obama's motivation is? Because if we wait till the election, it's too late for President Obama. If he doesn't get that unemployment number down, he can't win the re-election. He doesn't have 14 months. He's got to go right away. And if he wants to pass something right away, he has to get Republicans to sign on to it. So, for example, Robert Reich today writes a column saying, hey, you know what? If you're going to pass small nickel and dime stuff, and the only way you can do it is get Republicans on board, don't even do it, because then they'll turn around and blame you that it didn't work, which is exactly what happened with the stimulus bill, right? And we just showed you Michelle Bachmann making that same argument. So Robert Reich is right. The problem is President Obama can't listen to that because he thinks if I don't get that unemployment number down right away, I'm going to lose the election. So yeah, Reich might be right about strategy, in the long term, but I'm not fighting Republicans now. I got to get something passed. I'm desperate. So that's why he does a speech where he says, Republicans, I'm on your side. I have only taken proposals that you have proposed. Please pass it right away. By the way, this should be dubbed the Dogan Uger address. You know, my daddy will call me. He's like, you know, you have to do this right away. That's exactly what this speech was. And JR, that's why. You see what I'm saying? Okay. So now, I'll skip a couple others. We had a couple other clips where he's like, Republicans, please, I'm telling you, I'm begging you, it's your ideas, I promise. So I'll skip those, you get the idea. Now I want to go to the actual policy proposals because, hey, look, let's be fair. Actually, some of these proposals are good, some are not so good, and I want to break it down for you so you know the substance. So let's start with clip 4 here.
The plan also extends unemployment insurance for another year. If the millions of unemployed Americans stop getting this insurance and stop using that money for basic necessities, it would be a devastating blow to this economy. Democrats and Republicans in this chamber have supported unemployment insurance plenty of times in the past, and in this time of prolonged hardship, you should pass it again, right away.
Okay. By the way, we're not doctoring the tape. Every one of those right-of-ways that JR compiled, the first clip that you saw, was from the speech. There was no repeats. In fact, I think you left one out. That's what he told me. So now, on to the unemployment insurance. On unemployment insurance, it's actually a mixed bag. So do we want it extended? Progressives do. I'm a little bit more conservative on that, but okay, fine. Extending it is overall a good thing, right? I'll grant that to the progressives. So now, when you break it down, some portions of it we don't like. It's, for example, the Georgia Works program. We explained a couple of shows ago. That's where you get unemployment insurance, but you have to work for it. And the people who benefit are employers who give you job training. Job training, my ass. They put you to work, and they get you to work for them for free. That way, the government pays, and the employer doesn't have to put a nickel in, and they get all these unemployed guys to work for them without hiring them, okay? I don't like that part of the proposal at all. Some liberal groups have come out, Progressive Change Campaign Committee, saying that sucks. Other congressmen coming out saying, whoa, we're really concerned about that, Raul Grijalva, et cetera. But there are other parts of the unemployment proposal, and it's too long a list here, but I'll just summarize by just giving you the names: work sharing, reemployment assistance, wage insurance, startup assistance, et cetera. that are worthy of consideration. And overall, it's a mixed bag, but here, I'll give you one last specific example so you know what I'm talking about on the upside of this proposal. One of the proposals is $4,000 if you hire someone who's unemployed. That's not bad. That's because, look, Young Turks, other than being a show, is also a small business. And we now have about 12, 13 employees. I'm beginning to lose track. So when President Obama says, if we cut the payroll tax on the employer side, now in that case, that would be us on the Young Turks, that will encourage you to hire more people. That's nonsense. That's why I don't like that. One of the reasons I don't like that proposal. We never sit around going, oh, wow, we saved a 1.5%. Oh, let's hire 3 more people. I mean, it's not even close. On the other hand, saying here's $4,000 if you hire someone unemployed, that's something. It's something, especially if you're hiring more and more people, that could push you over the top to hire maybe a couple of extra people, right? So it's a mixed bag, but not bad overall on that front. All right, now let's go on to the second topic here. This is on Medicare, which is not as good. 6.
Now, I realize there's some in my party who don't think we should make any changes at all to Medicare and Medicaid, and I understand their concerns. But here's the truth. Millions of Americans rely on Medicare in their retirement, and millions more will do so in the future. They pay for this benefit during their working years. They earn it. But with an aging population and rising health care costs, we are spending too fast to sustain the program. And if we don't gradually reform the system while protecting current beneficiaries, it won't be there when future retirees need it. We have to reform Medicare to strengthen it. I'm also
Now, you see Lindsey Graham jump out of his seat there, right? He's a Republican senator from South Carolina. You see the Republicans applauded to that a lot more than Democrats did. In fact, a lot of Democrats didn't applaud that at all. Why is that? Because the devil's in the details. It depends on what you mean by reforming Medicare and Medicaid. If you mean some changes like they made to Medicare Advantage, I'm actually in favor of it. Look, Medicaid and Medicare are in some trouble. They're not like Social Security. They're not fully funded. And if you're going to do some smart tweaks, I actually don't have a problem with that. But the question is, how are you going to change it? But luckily, this one is not confusing. As we try to do here, I'm going to give you a guide so you can see on your own, based on what they propose, whether they're honest actors or not. Okay? If they make proposals like changing how creating an independent payment advisory board, et cetera, that might be fine. But if they say we're raising the retirement age, that means no. It was reforming my ass. That means we're just cutting it. That's not to make the program more efficient. That's not to do anything that's more effective. That's just simply, we need money. We got to get more money for tax cuts. So we're just going to rob people who are looking to get Medicare at the age of 65, we're going to move it to 67. So now, obviously, Medicaid's different. But if on Medicare you hear that they're raising the retirement age, then President Obama totally sold you out on that issue. Then he went with the Republican idea of just cut Medicare, forget about efficiency or tweaking it or reforming it or making it better. So again, he hasn't done it yet. You get to decide for yourself, will he do it or won't he do it? We'll find out. But overall, that little statement there within the speech, terrible. Now, let's go to clip 7.
I'll also offer ideas to reform a corporate tax code that stands as a monument to special interest influence in Washington. By eliminating pages of loopholes and deductions, we can lower one of the highest corporate tax rates in the world. Our tax code should not give an advantage to companies that can afford the best connected lobbyists. It should give an advantage to companies that invest and create jobs right here in the United States of America.
Okay, so if he just wants to take away the loopholes, I jump in it. I would love that. If he actually wants to give incentives to create jobs here in the U.S. instead of abroad, I would love it. Republicans clapped on that. They're so full of crap. That was the #1 issue that their voters and supporters wanted them to push when they did a poll on their online. And they totally discarded it because, of course, their donors are corporate donors who want to create more jobs abroad, not here, right? So the Republicans totally full of it. I hope Obama isn't. But the reason I went aye is because he's going to lower corporate taxes. In the middle of this this budget mess, he's going to lower corporate taxes. when they take away the loopholes, if they take away the loopholes, you think those loopholes aren't coming back? Look, I don't know how old you are, but I was, and I was a kid at the time, but I loved politics and I was paying attention. I remember when Reagan took away the loopholes, and he did. He did. To be fair to Reagan, he did, okay? Now, he did other things you might not agree with, but he took away the loopholes. Guess what happened? Well, we jumped right back in it. Now all the loopholes are back because our politicians get paid by the people who want those loopholes. So Obama lowering the corporate tax rate he's definitely going to do it. He can't wait to do it. He's been dying to do it for 2-3 years. It's horrible, if you ask me. All right, and then one last one here, clip 9.
But what we can't do, what I will not do, is let this economic crisis be used as an excuse to wipe out the basic protections that Americans have counted on for decades. I reject the idea that we need to ask people to choose between their jobs and their safety. I reject the argument that says for the economy to grow, we have to roll back protections that ban hidden fees by credit card companies, or rules that keep our kids from being exposed to mercury, or laws that prevent the health insurance industry from shortchanging patients. I reject the idea that we have to strip away collective bargaining rights to compete in a global economy.
I was amused by the Republicans' stone-faced reaction to that. Collective bargaining rights for workers, for the average American? Where's our tax cuts to the rich? And right before that, of course, Obama had talked about, oh, there's too much regulations. You Republicans are so right. I'm so sorry we ever did any regulations. But on the other hand, I will keep all the important regulations, except you just threw the smog regulation in the garbage. It was incredibly important, and you decided that you didn't want to do it at all, okay? His own labor secretary, when referring to the Bush policy on that, which Obama now furthered, in fact, made it worse in some ways, said that it was legally indefensible. And her own boss just did what was legally indefensible. But then he gives a pretty speech about how he cares so much about regulation. And he gives a pretty speech about how he cares about collective bargaining. Who are you kidding? You were non-existing during the collective bargaining fight in Wisconsin. Where's your walking shoes? So, I mean, that goes back to how we started, which is, yes, I'm skeptical when I go into an Obama speech. You should know that. But he's earned my skepticism. So now let's summarize. So in the speech, President Obama proposed a $447 billion jobs plan. But when you look at the numbers, it turns out over $250 billion of that is tax cuts. So I did the math on it. Over 56% of this jobs plan is dedicated to tax cuts. That is definitely not the direction I would have gone. Why? Because tax cuts don't work. We did tremendous tax cuts. The last 10 years, we have a net loss of 1 million jobs. How much more evidence do you need that tax cuts don't work? When Bill Clinton raised taxes, we created 22 million jobs. How much evidence do you need? Why do you keep going to Republican ideas on tax cuts? Now, on the other hand, there were good things. For example, $140 billion in infrastructure spending that's going to go to improving school buildings, roads, bridges, ports, et cetera, which is definitely good, which is something we've been pushing for. And $35 billion to help states that are laying off teachers so they don't have to lay off those teachers. So there's the good and the bad. So let me summarize. The positives in this speech were, in my opinion, extending unemployment benefits, the infrastructure spending that we just mentioned there, $140 billion, the money to the states for teachers that we just mentioned, and then targeting some tax breaks for hiring the unemployed. That's the $4,000 if you hire someone who's unemployed. Or you give wage increases. So there's definitely positives in there, like the infrastructure, the most out of all of that. But there were also negatives in the speech. So what were those? Well, as I explained to you, 56% of the package was tax cuts. The wrong direction to go. There was a promise to cut Medicare and to cut Medicaid as well. I think that's disastrous. He's slashing the payroll tax, and that hurts Social Security, because then later they'll go and say, well, there's just not enough money for Social Security because we slashed the payroll tax. And it doesn't just go to the employees. Now he wants a proposal for employers as well, and that's nearly a complete waste, because economists have shown over and over again that's the least effective way of stimulating the economy. Also, free trade agreements, especially the one with Panama, drives me crazy. The others are arguable, but the one with Panama is nothing but a tax haven for corporations to hide their money so we may pay more taxes and they pay less taxes. And then finally, my overall point here is that when you put all this together, even though it was bigger than some people expected, the overall proposal, I still believe that he's playing around the edges. Look, yes, the $35 billion to the states is good. Yes, some money to the infrastructure is good. But we needed a huge proposal. Look, the tax cuts are just candy. We're gonna eat that up as an economy, and maybe we get a slight bump up, and most economists believe that we'll create anywhere between 1 and 2 million jobs because of the extra money that the government is pumping into the economy, but that's short term. And even the economists who say that say it's definitely short term. And after about a year and a half, it'll wear off. And I know that's the year and a half that President Obama is going to be running for re-election. So that's why he cares more about it. That's why he wants to do it now. But I care about long-term unemployment. I care about the long-term state of our economy. And I don't think these proposals are going to get it done. What we need is a giant project for, whether it's for infrastructure, whether it's for green energy, but the idea is to put people back to work so that it is an investment. Look, Nobel Prize-winning economists like Joseph Stiglitz have already written about this. Everybody knows it. You could do an investment in infrastructure, technology, and education. And why do we call it an investment? It's not a trick word. It's not a euphemism. It's to literally invest in the country as we did back in the 1940s and 50s so that we can have greater output later and more jobs later. If we didn't build the highways, if we didn't build the bridges, our economy would have never been as strong as it was. So we need to do that again. And that is a great two-sided advantage. It creates jobs and it sets us up for a better economy later. Did we get that from this speech? Overall, I got to say, no, we didn't. We got playing around the edges with some things that are positive, some parts that are, I'm afraid, very negative. And in the end, whether it helps his re-election is an open question, because it might, given the slight bump up, if he gets the whole package through that he might get. On the other hand, does it help our economy in the long run? I got to say, no way. Not even close. This is not the way to restructure our economy. This is not the way to get the jobs back from China. It just isn't it. It's politics. And that's really disheartening, but that's the reality. Okay, now I've taken a great amount of time doing this, but let me just give you 2 more facts on this, and then we'll move on. And I actually have a funny clip for you guys in the next segment. One is that you can tell it's partly about the election because he immediately went on a tour, went to Richmond, Virginia first, Cantor's home district, and Virginia is this toss-up state that he won last time around. Now, it's partly good because I like that he went into Cantor's district because that's a way of using realpolitik to pressure Republicans. Great, okay? On the other hand, if you're just doing this for re-election, but he's a politician, I get it. They do that, right? But one thing on going back to Medicare that I wanted to make sure you knew, because this is really interesting. Some of the people that are pushing for Medicare retirement age to go up, it turns out, is the hospital lobby, the American Hospital Association. Why? Because that way they save money. If the Medicare costs come in efficiency, well, that efficiency comes out of the profits of the hospitals. It's the money we're wasting on hospitals. It doesn't mean the money spent on hospitals is a waste. I'm talking about the extra money that they're getting that they shouldn't be getting that isn't efficient. They don't want that. They don't want the efficiency. What they want is money to come from someone else, and that would be you. So they would rather have the politicians push the retirement age up so the money's made up on your ass, not theirs. So they're lobbying like a Dickens. Now, I leave you with that last question. Who do you think is going to win between those two competing interests? The American people, who would be better off with a more efficient Medicare system and a retirement age that stays at 65, or these healthcare lobbies who prefer a retirement age of 67? Who do you think is going to win? Who do you think President Obama is going to side with? If you're an Obama supporter and you think he's going to side with the American people and keep it at 65, I wish you good luck, and I hope you're right. But even you know that isn't true. Young Turks. All right, back on the Young Turks. Jake and Anna with you. Go. Right away.
All right, we'll do it right now. Okay.
Right away.
Jake is feeling a little jokesterish today.
Jokesterish. Go.
By the way, Tom had this interesting article. I think it was like Men's Health magazine or something, right?
Oh, I'm gonna go on and write something. Go ahead.
Okay, so anyway, he was showing it to me. He's like, oh, let's categorize our coworkers, right? Because it has a list of all the different types of coworkers, right? And most of them are positive. There's like the jokester, there's the busy beaver, there's the brainiac.
I would argue I'm all three.
Calm down, please. The only one that was negative was the dead weight, and like, you know.
I would argue I'm all four.
The dead weight is bad. Dead weight means you're like useless, right?
I know.
Okay.
It also seems like heavy, so that's why I put myself in that category. But yes.
But I love those magazine articles. I mean, of course you take them with a grain of salt, but they're still fun.
Okay, so here's my rant on Men's Health. I picked one up the other day, not from a magazine stand. Somebody had it in the house, right? And I realized two things about the magazine that drive me crazy. One, now with most of those magazines, and I'm not just talking about that particular one, every article is 3 lines, right? Like it used to be 2-page articles, sometimes 5-page articles. Now everything's like
a blurb.
A blurb, yeah, like, oh, how to have better sex in 7 seconds. And here's your 2 paragraphs on it. Ha ha! I still have your attention, right? Right? Because it's for, I don't know, ADD people and stuff. I can't read more than 3 paragraphs. Oh my God. I gotta have that sex in 7 seconds or less. And then the second thing is, I don't get it, man. I've never gotten it, and as I looked through it, I still didn't get it. Every page is some dude with his shirt off.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, what's the appeal? I mean, like, I'm like, why don't you just call it homoerotic magazine?
I think.
Like,
so you're saying that Tom is reading a homoerotic magazine?
I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying.
It's supposed to. I don't know if a man's brain works in a similar way, but I know that with women's health magazines, they do that because it kind of motivates you. Like, okay, you know, let me live this healthy lifestyle. This is what I want to look like. To achieve my goal, I have to do A, B, and C. I don't know if men really work that way as well, but I'm guessing that's why they have all the shirtless men in the magazine.
I don't know, man, but it's, look, putting the kidding aside, of course, it's different people react to it in different ways, so maybe it motivates some guys and stuff. For me, I'm like, I just don't get the appeal, man. There's nothing wrong with it, but I just don't want to look at one shirtless guy after another, and then all the models are like, you know, guys looking with steamy eyes like.
I love how Jake just woke up to this today.
No, because I never look at those magazines.
Right.
I never got past the cover because I'm like, okay, shirtless dude. Where's the next magazine? At least with the football magazines, they got their shirts on. They got shoulder pads. They got everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, so what's the point of these magazines? But some people love it. And they're like, oh my God, what else did that guy with the great abs do?
Okay. Another problem with those magazines, I will agree with you on that, but another problem is every other page is an advertisement. In fact, the articles themselves are advertisements. They're advertising some sort of product that's supposed to help you lose the weight. I can't
stand it. I think they're totally useless, unless you're into that kind of thing, in which case, God bless, go to work. Yeah, come on.
Got to start reading Men's Health.
Yeah, no, but you see my point.
He's a bad boy.
I feel like I've always felt this about that magazine. It's trying to be a male.
See that not a single one of them doesn't have a shirtless dude.
Yeah, a male's version of like
a little jelly.
Cosmopolitan, because it's about sex. It's about looking good. And so then guys are supposed to look at it and go, I want to look like that. When guys don't think like that.
I don't think so, man. I mean,
because all the things always say, build this now, get abs now. So you're supposed to think, I'm going to look like that. But guys don't look at other guys and go, oh, I want to look like that guy.
You know, apparently some do, because these magazines all sell, you know. So I'm not saying it, I'm just saying, you know. And finally, I realized as well that I read so much more Vogue in my life than I have any of these men's magazines. Just because when I was a kid, I was a teenager, and the Vogue would come, and I'm like, oh, we didn't even have porn back then. I'm so old school. I remember when we didn't even have any porn magazines lying around. Like, you had to go and buy it from 3 Card Monte, right? So, like, we were so desperate to see chicks. We didn't have cable in the house. We didn't have HBO. We didn't have a VCR. I had to look through Vogue. Mm-hmm. Okay, I mean, just to see pretty girls. That's what I'm saying.
Right. You didn't read any of the articles?
No, literally, I didn't. But anyway, and I'm the guy questioning other folks. But anyway, I remember when I used to read Vogue. Yes, forward.
Lynn State Technical College in Missouri will now begin to drug test all of its students. They said that they wanted to do this because it's a technical college. Some of the students operate heavy machinery. They want to make sure that they're safe and not under the influence of drugs, which sounds like a good reason, right? Mm-hmm. Except they drug test all of their students, including accounting, communications, and math. majors.
Can you imagine if you were high while doing accounting, though? Yeah, the liabilities totally match up with the assets. Let's go get some Taco Bell. The damage that could do, especially as a student.
That's
if
a
you're,
good point, yeah.
You know, if you're working on accounting models and you get a little high, I'm glad they're testing everybody.
Look, we just talked about surveillance post 9/11, right? But Big Brother is watching everywhere. Now, the school administration wants to drug test you to make sure you're not doing marijuana and meth and oxycodone.
Just get out of our lives, man. And by the way, if you're doing oxycodone all the time, or whatever you call it, you'll eventually fall apart, and you won't be able to graduate. Not necessarily, but a lot of the times, that's how you'll weed it out, okay? For the guys who can survive, they'll survive, and for the guys who become drug addicts, well, they're not going to make it anyway.
Another wrinkle to the story is that the drug tests, which obviously cost money, are paid for by the students. $50 per drug test.
Thank you so much. And then later, they come and punch you in the face and charge you $50 for that, too. They're like, what? Well, it was a punch fee we had to add. Reminds me of Mean Gene from the post game. You remember? I want you for shit. All right, then give me $100. But I don't want your shit. All right, then give me $100. Okay, anyway.
All right, both the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security both released studies, and also some information was leaked about the war on drugs and how much of a disaster it's been. So now we have members of the Obama administration who acknowledge in a report and in leaked information that the war on drugs is not working, but we still continue to do it, okay? So I want to share you some numbers that were shown in the study. It turns out that drug use in the United States has increased significantly. Back in 2008, 8% of Americans were using drugs. In 2009, 8.7% of Americans were using drugs. And in 2010, 8.9% of Americans were using drugs.
I don't get this, Anna. I thought we were doing a war on drugs. Shouldn't we be winning? Do we have to spend more money on the war on drugs? Do we have to invade another drug before they attack us over here? Because I'm shocked to find out that our war on drugs isn't really successful. That is really, really weird.
I have more numbers for you. When it comes to specifically marijuana use in the United States, back in 2007, about 5.8% of the U.S. were using marijuana. Now in 2010, or back in 2010, 6.9% were using marijuana. So that is a significant increase in the amount of people that are token up.
No wonder this country's falling apart. With an extra 1 point increase in the people using marijuana, obviously our economy crashed because of that. Hello? Okay, so we need to fight the war on drugs by spending more money.
Right.
That's the only answer. Just fight harder.
Well, right now, the federal government is only spending $15 billion a year on enforcing the war on drugs, and then local and state governments are spending an additional $25 billion. I suggest we spend $100 billion, both on the federal and the state level.
If $40 billion isn't getting you the results you need, the answer is to double down.
Absolutely.
Because that's what, if I've learned anything in Vegas, it's that. Okay, when you're in trouble and it appears that your tactics are not working, double down. No, seriously, our war on drugs is so inane. I keep asking the question nobody ever has the answer to. When do we win?
We're never going to win. Now there are currently members of the cartels that are setting up here in the United States. There are 1,000 cartel members setting up shop in the U.S. That was another finding in the study by the Department of Justice.
If we had used the logic of the war on drugs on prohibition, which in the beginning we did, obviously, and it led to a disaster, if we had kept using it instead of repealing prohibition, right now we'd still be in the middle of the war on alcohol, and we'd be spending $400 billion to try to contain alcohol. But you see, we would never win that war, because the more you fight it, the more you create gangs, the more, and it doesn't hurt demand at all. It's all a losing proposition. All it does is waste our money, which everybody should be against, conservatives, libertarians, and liberals.
The great thing about the alcohol prohibition, though, is that if it hadn't have happened, we wouldn't at least get Boardwalk Empire. So there's always a silver lining to everything, right?
You know, I'm so glad you made that point, because now I feel so much better about prohibition. And you know what? If we didn't have the war on drugs, we wouldn't have gotten Scarface.
Good point.
Okay.
By the way,
I rest my case.
just for people who don't understand the sarcasm, I'm kidding.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I know you get it.
Yep.
But then people will be like, "Oh, that is so stupid. What do you mean? That's a horrible thing to say." I'm joking.
Look, if it wasn't for the Night Walkers, we wouldn't have Game of Thrones. Okay. So, okay, never mind. Okay. All right. I don't even think they're the Night Walkers. White Walkers.
JR,
Okay.
do you want us to engage in a conversation about Game of Thrones now?
You want me to talk more about the Blood Riders of the Dothraki clan? No? Okay. All right. All right. Forward then.
All right. The family of a murdered Yale graduate student, Annie Lee, are now suing Yale because they failed to protect her from getting killed. Now, this is a fascinating story because it questions who should be responsible for the crime. Now, the person who murdered her and also sexually assaulted her is Raymond Clark III. He was sentenced to 44 years in prison, which I think is ridiculous. He murdered her and then stuffed her body upside down.
In a wall.
In a wall, okay? And he also sexually assaulted her, but he gets 44 years in jail.
I think she was 89 pounds.
She was 89 pounds and 4 feet 9 inches.
No, the guy's an animal. He should get life. Okay, so we're not interested in lenient sentences here. Okay, and we've been consistent on that on the Young Turks. Now, when it comes to the university, I just don't get the claim. I don't get it. I think they're angry. The parents are, and I get that because what happened to her is so grotesque, and you know, I feel sick about what happened to the family and just thinking about their reaction. But at the same time, it doesn't make their actions in this case right. They say she should have been protected. Okay, so I'm open-minded to that. As I was reading the article, I thought, well, all right, was she attacked from the outside and they didn't have right security measures, etc.? You know, Yale's in a tough neighborhood in some ways, in a lot of ways. No, he was a technician at the lab. So he had the key because he's a technician at the lab.
Right.
So and he had no criminal record. That's the next thing. You're like, well, did they let an animal in here that they should have known better? But he had no record whatsoever.
He didn't have a criminal record. However, there were several students who complained about him being violent,
No way. And I'll tell you why. Okay. Now that sounds reasonable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, given what he did in hindsight, you're like, oh my God. But look, if he did an actual violent act, he should have been prosecuted. They should have but they didn't, right? So I don't know if it was out of negligence that they didn't bring anything, or if it wasn't to that level, right?
Well, I think that the family is accusing the school of negligence for not doing anything when people were complaining about him being violent.
But remember, that's all in hindsight. If somebody, is aggressive at work or something, and the university was like, "Oh, that's it. You might murder someone and put them upside down on a wall. We're firing you or something." That guy would sue. He'd say, "What?
I know, but being aggressive and being violent are two completely different things."
Okay, so it depends on the facts. I hear you, right?
Mm-hmm.
If he was hitting people, well, of course they should have taken action, right? But I'd be really surprised because if somebody got hit, they'd probably, bring him in on charges. If he didn't actually touch anybody and he was just, then I say, no, I get your pain, I get your incredible frustration.
Right.
And I feel terrible for what's happened to you, but I don't think that's on the university.
Based on the information that we have now, which is very little, okay, I would agree with you. But I definitely think that if the university failed to investigate this guy, and if the university failed to, do their part in making sure they didn't have, an employee who didn't belong there, then yeah, they should be sued. But we don't know if that's the case. We don't know if they investigated them or not. But there's another thing that I wanted to mention. Yale has been accused of a lot of negligent things in the past year, okay? And we've done this story on TYTU where women will go and complain to administrators about sexual assault, in some cases rape, and the administrators will kind of like ignore it.
Well, if you can prove a pattern like that, it's an easy case. Then of course I'm on your side if you prove that pattern. And, and now you got me thinking we should investigate Yale. I mean, if there's a lot of charges of that. Look, I don't want to create another problem with our solution. Do you see what I'm saying? Because then you just start to nitpick who's too aggressive at work and who's not, and you overreact. I don't like that either. And look, I don't know if I'm biased in this case, but I'll tell you a personal story that happened to me in law school. I'm an aggressive debater, right? And not even that much. I just state my opinion, but everybody thinks I'm loud. Shocking.
You're definitely an aggressive debater. I don't even know why you're
What are you talking about? I'm not an aggressive debater.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Okay.
Okay, no, seriously. And I remember at the end of one of these discussions in class, and it was a giant class, so I wasn't in anybody's face. They were like miles away from me, right? Several girls complained that that Cenk Uygur is a large man, and that sometimes he speaks loudly in class, and we feel physically intimidated by him, and we're afraid he might do something violent.
Are you serious?
And I was like, but what? That's crazy. I'm like, what? So maybe that's why I'm a little biased in this story. Like, wait a minute, you don't want to overreact, and because some guy made a point you didn't like in class, all of a sudden, bloop, 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 bloop. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, I do see what you're saying.
Right.
And that's like your anecdotal, I wouldn't even say evidence of the story, but contribution to the story. But look, all I'm saying is there's nothing wrong with a little investigation. And if there has been a pattern at Yale, there should definitely be an investigation into the administrators at Yale and how they've treated certain situations in the past.
I will not allow it.
Okay.
Okay, all right, fine, I'll allow it. Okay, all right, we got to take a quick break here. We'll come back.